How about this morning? Some great conversation this morning, some great announcements, a lot of great stuff going on there. So I want to help sort of build on that, because what we're talking about is how we can deliver better services to our customers, right? How we're going to deliver better services to our customers is really the key reason why we're here. And not so much about how to follow a process, but let's talk about problem management, because it's how we're going to actually deliver better services to our customers. And problem management, it really is about quality, right? It's about quality. So if we look at those services that we're providing, IT is providing to enable the business, or just look at any business service that we have that your organization is delivering to deliver results to its customers, all right? It's about availability, you know? So, one of the complaints or things you hear sometimes is, like, when's the last time somebody called and said, thanks for keeping all the services running? Did anybody get one of those calls? All right. So, when's the last time any of you called? Did you call the electric company? Hey, electric company, it's John. Hey, I'm just calling. It's really great. The power's been on for 6 months. We haven't had an interruption of service. I guess it depends where you live, because I've actually lived some places where having power on for like 3 months without an interruption really is an achievement. All right? But what do your customers expect? They just expect it to work. And they expect it to work all the time, don't they? And more of the services we have, it isn't just 8 to 5. It isn't 5 days a week or 6 days a week. It's 7, right? I heard somebody the other day refer to it as 7/24, 366, because he had to account for that one leap year day every 4 years because somebody didn't want to count that in there, right? But our customers just expect everything to work. Right? So part of our challenge is to make sure those services that we've got really do meet the needs of the business. And unfortunately, everything we have in that infrastructure to deliver those services at sometimes may stop working. And if it's hardware and it's software, it probably will break at some point. Right? Nobody really wants to always talk about that, but it's going to happen, isn't it? Something is going to break at some point. So the other thing we want to talk about, it isn't just always keep it working, but when it breaks, are we ready to restore the service? Can we restore it faster, quicker? Can we minimize the impact of that interruption, right? And for those of you that work sort of out of the DevOps mindset, that concepts of anti-fragile, right? When it breaks, can we minimize the impact? And we minimize the impact of it, right? So how do we do that? So we need to recover faster. I need to make sure we get more value, right? More value, less downtime, but more value for what's there. And what kind of insights do we really get from all that information? Who's really tracking what's going on? And when we talk about problem, there's really 2 components to it. There's a reactive and a proactive. And you're all familiar with the reactive, right? The outage, everybody gets going, the adrenaline flows, we run around, we get it back working. But think about all of the small interruptions, right? It's 2 users, it's 3 users, it's one small office, it's one segment, it's all those individual pieces. And when you sum all of those up, quite often, the net impact of that is equal to or greater than some of those outages that you have. And while we may not be thinking of it, because it wasn't an outage, right? It still has an impact on your credibility. It still has an impact on your reputation. So things we need to think of. So why are we going to care about it? We want our customers, whoever's using our services, to be more productive. And I don't care how many levels we want to go there. It's about removing interruptions so they can get their job done. Reduce the downtime or increase the available time. And decrease costs, increase value. How can we increase value? By removing interruptions so people can stay focused on their jobs. Whenever we introduce an interruption, it significantly impacts the credibility of the people that are using that service. Because it isn't just a little small interruption, right? Oh, I've got to call the service desk. I'm going to ask somebody. Oh, I've got 2 people there, right? Then I call the service desk. And then I get back, all right? So what might sound like an 8 to 10 minute interruption, probably in the total impacted user time, could be 12 or 15 minutes. Often 3, sometimes 4 times the impact of what you might measure in a ticket, because there's multiple people involved. So I want to decrease that cost. Now there's a lot of challenges to doing problem, right? And lots of people think they can do problem or they want to do problem management, but the result is often we get a lot of rework Because if we don't have any common methodologies, then every time somebody touches the issue, what happens? They go back to the beginning. And even if we've got this nice story, here's the discussion, here's what they did. How many of you actually pick up where somebody left off and move forward? Wow, okay, a couple of hands. And how many groups, whoever gets it always goes back and starts all over again? Yeah, and then the next one, it goes back and starts all over again, right? And sometimes that happens multiple times, right? So we want to sort of minimize that. And when we end up with a lot of people working an issue, kind of show you what happens. There's an interesting statistic here, right? The more people that get involved, look how that line goes up in terms of the time it takes to resolve, right? And kind of the reason we were bringing more people in was we wanted to get it solved faster, didn't we? Not extend it. Well, the challenge is if we bring lots of people together, do they have a common methodology? Do they have common techniques that they can share in using? Or does everybody have their own way that they want to address the issue? Right? And when I have all of these different ideas, at some point it's good to have different ideas, but I need to bring it together sometimes with some common techniques. Otherwise, we just increase and increase the amount of time to get there. So we're going to talk about why we're going to do it, and we're going to talk a lot about the techniques. All right? Not going to teach them to you, but explain to you what they are. Because if you really want to get value out of doing problem management, then one of the things you've got to do is have some of these common techniques and know when to use each one of them. All right? So let's start. We've got some problem, right? A problem, something that's causing lots of incidents, something that's causing lots of issues, right? Causing lots of issues, so we're going to get there. And what do I want to do? I want to identify what those are, and then we'll have a problem I can link to them. And unfortunately, we're going to have a lot of these potential problems, and it may not be worth fixing all of them. Sometimes it may be too expensive to fix them. Sometimes it may be too expensive even to figure out how to fix them. But I need to figure out which do I want to fix. Those are the problems. So I'm going to link the incidents to the problems. And hopefully I'm going to get them some known errors. Hey, how do I fix this? When it happens, I don't need, every time it happens, for someone to spend 2 hours trying to figure out how to resolve this issue. We should know how to do it. Once it's been solved, we should only have to solve it once, right? And then we can keep reusing that and reusing that, all right? But we still have those interruptions. So some of those interruptions we should fix, and how are we going to fix it? Well, we're going to put it through a request for change, right? And then once that change is approved, we're going to build it, and we're going to test it, and we're going to release it, and then we're going to check to make sure that it's happened. And in the course of doing that, I'm going to say, what did it cost to implement this change and release? What did it cost if we kept this defect in there, right? So I want to put that balance into play. Oh yeah, I want all of those known errors, requests for change. I want that sitting in the backlog. Because I want somebody to have to decide every time we're going to look at a new feature, a new function, we have to balance the cost of that feature and what value the business gets with the cost of keeping that fault in there, and what's the cost of the business for not fixing it. So we want to bring all of this together, again, just help you make better business decisions when we look at what is it we're going to do next, right? What's the next change? I want a holistic view, right? What's going to benefit us the most? And those interruptions not only have an impact on productivity, but what's it like when somebody calls your company, right? What's it like when we call and they say, oh, just a minute, our computer's running slow. Oh, just a minute, this is running slow. What does it say to them? They're not important, right? Oh, so you really don't care about your customers. You don't care about customer service, right? Oh, it's really slow. Why is it slow? Oh, because we weren't willing to invest. Right? We invest in those things that are important, right? So we want to make sure we're investing in the right kinds of things for what's there. So we need to have some metrics, right? Yeah, how many problems are reported and how many we resolved within targets and known errors and costs and accuracy. Those are a lot of great process statistics. Yeah, we need to have them to manage the process. But ultimately, what do I care about? What did we spend to do problem management? How did that help your business be more successful, right? And that's more customers, it's more revenue, it's better margins, it's higher value, employee productivity. What's the appropriate metric, right? So great process metrics, and we need to have them to know how effective and efficient we're doing. But remember, the process metric alone isn't what's most important. What's most important is what's the impact of the business of what we're doing. All right? Eliminate downtime. How about more confidence? How much confidence do your users have when they hit the same issues month after month, year after year? What does it say about the quality of services you're providing? Right? So that's what we want to think about. Benefits, as we said, we're going to get better quality. People want to work for organizations that deliver great quality. Right? We want to work for organizations that are successful. I want to have fewer issues. I want to continue to have fewer issues. All right? I'd like to hear, as we did yesterday morning, significant reductions in feedback about negative things and more feedback about all of the positive things. Right? I don't want to eliminate feedback. I want more feedback. But I want to hear more about what we need to do or how to get better, not complaints that it's too slow, right? Or there's too many interruptions. So we really are talking very core here is about quality management, because that's what problem is. It's about quality management. How about being able to think about how about the number of fixes we put in that, again, removed interruptions, right? That increased the quality, increased satisfaction, but ultimately it was about helping whoever used that service deliver the outcomes they want to get so the business can be more successful. Right? And where we can't fix it, and sometimes we can't, right? It is an issue from a vendor that we can't fix, or it's just too expensive for what's there, then how do we get better workarounds, right? How do I minimize when it occurs, right? And how do I get back working faster when it does occur? Again, key point about problem that not a lot of people are thinking about there. And there's a lot of learning that it can occur. Again, we can trend it, right? We can trend it and analyze it. Again, how do I figure out how to deliver better services? Maybe even go back and see which of the development groups are producing good quality, excellent quality, or which of them are continue to introduce more work, more costs to the organization, right? And then how do we go back and work with them to improve the quality of overall services that are there? Want fewer escalations. I want more things resolved at that first point of contact. And that's going to bring higher value to the organization, right? If a customer calls and we deliver the right service and we can help them and answer it right away, they're actually quite often going to be more satisfied customers. So I want to think about how do we help do that. And one of the key ways we're going to do that is through better knowledge sharing, right? We heard yesterday and we heard a lot of great stuff this morning about new tools, right? How you can use Confluence to really help with that content and get the right content to the right audience, right? So the whole point about context, for those that may have struggled around knowledge management, the point around context is really important, right? I've got lots of content out there, but it's not always appropriate for everybody. How do I get the right content to the right person to answer the question that they need to have? And ultimately, how do I get better decision making? Because all of that is about that, isn't it? It's about the ability to make better decisions faster at lower risk for the organization, right? I want to help put all of those in place. Some of the challenges when we put this in place. Do I really have clear goals and objectives? Is there policies about what we're going to do, what we're not going to do, right? Are we allocating resources? Now, one big challenge. Problem management is not something you get to do in your spare time. Does anybody have those tasks? You know, when you're not busy with whatever else you're doing, somebody wants you to do that. Does anybody have spare time? I just want to check, all right? So I love this with management. So, well, we'll do it in our spare time. It's like knowledge management, right? Well, I want people to write knowledge articles. I want them to write knowledge content when they're not busy. Yeah. And then we want to know why we don't have knowledge articles. Because everybody's busy. Problem management, it's quality. We're not doing it in our spare time. We've got to allocate time for it. And by the way, if we allocate time, we said it's important. How important is something that you do in your spare time? Not very important, is it? Right? And that's a message you send in your spare time. It's not important. If I want to be successful in problem, we've got to allocate the resources to it. I've got to make sure the roles for people are clearly defined. And all of the process relationships between incident and knowledge and change and release, right? What does it cost? How does it impact service levels, right? All of those come together. We're not doing this in a vacuum, right? And it's not everybody gets to choose which problem I want to solve, right? We need to look at it from an organizational viewpoint and prioritize which of these problems are most important for our customers, right? which are the most important for, which are going to help us achieve the business goals, right? Which are going to help them achieve the business goals. Oh, and these aren't all just technical, are they? Could the problem be documentation? Could the problem be training? Could the problem be the fact that the users in the business haven't been trained correctly, right? Sometimes we look at the biggest, oh, well, they're not trained, because training is the easiest thing to cut in the business, isn't it? We know we should do it, but when money gets tight, that's the first thing people want to cut. What if we showed the cost by cutting that $10,000 or $20,000 in training, and it's now costing $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 in lost time, lost productivity, lost sales, right? So again, we've got data. What are we going to do with that to help our users? Because it's about helping them all be successful, right? What value are we going to get from all of this? How's that all going to happen? Now, we got all this in place, so what kind of techniques can we use? Well, we got a number of them. We're going to talk about everything from brainstorming to Kempner-Trago. So brainstorming is kind of simple, right? It's most common. We get a bunch of people together, right? Virtually, physically, we put them all in the same room or the same thing. They talk about the potential cause. And sometimes when it works well, it works really well. And sometimes it just kind of degrades and we have just lots of things thrown out, right? So facilitated well, a great tool. It can be very quick. And we can have some learning coming from that. If you don't do it moderated, probably isn't going to be that successful. All right? So we're going to bring that all in there. We'll document it. We'll identify things. Again, we can follow up. We may even come back to use it again later. So common. But again, all of these techniques need a little bit of facilitation. They need some training. And the more people can see it work well, the more value and the more people will participate in it. Another interesting one is pain value. And pain value really is just what it sounds like. Highest value, just related to the pain, all right? And this is about trying to understand the impact to the business. And we can use variables like the number of users, downtime, cost, if we have it, all right? But again, just a simple way of how do I start to prioritize some of those things that are there? And not hopefully just who yells the loudest, right? But what really has value to the business, right? We'll get investigation. We'll hopefully correct some of that. Many of you probably use this without knowing it, right? Who's yelling the loudest, or some key business systems that are out that we know are always going to be critical for you. All right, but there is a little bit of methodology to it. Now, the next one is going to be chronological analysis, and this really is, do I understand what happened, right? Can I really put all the steps of things that occurred there, right? Do I have a timeline? Do I really get all the events in chronological order, which means sometimes I got to go into the logs to see what's there. I may have to see what other events triggered things. I may have to see what individuals did along the way that didn't get recorded, right? And I want to put all of that in place. I want to get evidence, not just all the anecdotal stories of what happened, but really what occurred, right? Then I can correlate, identify root cause. Hopefully I can recreate it, which then hopefully makes it much easier for you to solve. Right? So chronological analysis. But again, I need good record keeping. What steps did we do? Who did them? When did they do them? And if I've got people trying lots of things and they aren't all recording it, then we can be in trouble with that. Now again, we've got some great tools, right, as we heard this morning, where we can get everybody into a dialogue, into a discussion. We can list what everybody did. If people record what they do, I can actually go back and do the chronological analysis. And remember, quite often we're doing a whole lot of things, and the bigger the importance it is, right, the more firefighting that goes on, the more adrenaline that's flowing. Quite often the other thing that happens is lots of people just start reacting, right? And we may get things back working, and then the question is, what caused it? Yeah, well, we've got so many people doing so many things, and at some point we're going to give up because we can't even start to figure it out. Well, chronological can help us, right? Again, we want to get it back, but what did we do so we can actually go figure out what happened and prevent it from reoccurring, right? Or perhaps learn what we did so if it happens again, we can get that service restored much quicker, right? Know what's going on. Chronological, again, I can find the incident, I detect it, I repair it, I restore the service. And I want to look at all of the steps in that timeline because each one of them is now an opportunity for improvement. Could I have detected it faster? What else could we do to repair it? What did I do to restore it? And quite often you have different groups working in each of those areas, right? And we did all of this, but yeah, then it took 8 hours to restore the database, right? So it may not have helped much if I figured out how to get detection and repair down to minutes. If the restoration of the database is going to take hours, maybe we should focus some time on what else can I do to get that database restored quicker? What other things could I do to help me get there? So again, trying to look at the whole timeline and how do I minimize the disruptions? How do I improve the overall quality? Now, Ishikawa diagrams, many of you know by the fishbone diagram, right? And fishbone diagrams are a great way to identify cause. Now, you can see we've got some problem. We've got level 1 causes, well, main cause, and then level 1 cause, and level 2 cause, and maybe even level 3 causes. So we can put the diagram out there. It's also a great way, when you build these for some common kinds of things, to also build some troubleshooting templates. Right now I can build decision trees, I can put questions into that, and that can keep leading me to next action, or actual solutions that we can build through there. I do have a whole root cause analysis here for you, which we've got software, we've got hardware, we've got management systems, we've got people in terms of turnover, we've got processes, a lot of different kinds of things in place here. All right? So that's just kind of as a resource for you. Another one is Pareto. Does anybody use Pareto? Great, several people do. Now, Pareto is, how do I take I got lots of causes to things, and where do I start? Right, where do I start when I've got a lot of different things that are causing an issue? So we're going to build a quick table, and I'll show you a table in a second. All right, and then we're going to graph it, all right, x-axis, y-axis, and we're going to put a pointed line at 80%. So let me just get to the diagram. So in this case, I've got things caused by the network. I've got things caused by file corruption, addressing, scripting errors, operator errors, right? A lot of different kinds of causes. So from the highest to the lowest, and then we see a cumulative number. And what we're going to do is talk about this 80%. You know the old 80-20 rule, right? 80% of what we've got is caused by 20% of the issue.